Hi, and welcome to another edition of Your Long Range Plan. My name is John Kennan, and I'm here with my co-host, Paul Tierney. As you already know, well, most of you already know, both Paul and I are attorneys. I practice in Sandwich, and Paul practices in Quincy, but we reach out across the Commonwealth of Mass with our legal services. And today we have two individuals that have a rather unique but very, very important service that they provide. And I'm going to let Paul talk to that.
Yes, we have Joy and Natalie here today, and they run a company called C&Z Transitions LLC. And this is a company that's geared for helping elders downsize. And ladies, I'd like you to introduce yourselves and briefly talk about what the gist of the company does for elders and around here.
Okay, so C&Z Transitions is a move planning and home downsizing company. And what our major goal is to decrease the stress and anxiety that seniors and their families experience when seniors are needing to leave their homes of many, many years and move into a smaller home. So we help them downsize their possessions, and we coordinate the whole move plan as much or as little as they need to do. We also help attorneys in overseeing the disposal of an estate, possessions left in an estate.
Great.
Well, I know what I've run into many times is when elders do decide, hey, it's time to move, it's time to sell the house. Well, half the battle is, finding the buyer. The other half is who's going to, help get all the stuff out of there. And I see that as a real burden, because if I'm the attorney who's involved putting the legal documents together, the purchase and sale agreement or any other agreements, we want to have enough time so that the elder can get all this stuff out of there. Now again, attorneys, we don't do that, but this service, I see it as a necessity. We need that. Elders need that.
I think that, just to respond to that, that you're right. One of the things that makes a move the most difficult for seniors is to say, how will I ever get out of here? It's overwhelming. And they don't know where to start. Now, if you were 25, you'd still wonder how you were going to start. But if by this time you really need to downsize a house of 35, 40, 50 years of possessions from attic to basement, how do I get out of here? And that's why we really do appreciate working with either realtors or attorneys who will say, can you help unplug this? This is a barrier. And yes, that's the business we really do. And we want to go in and talk to the seniors. You need some time to do this. You need time to sell your house. You need time to think this through. And we're looking to have a senior just have their shoulders come down, to relax. We need to help make this less stressful, because this is a very stressful period of time. And so that I think, yes, we want to work as a team to help people move.
Yeah, I actually came across it. I was remembering the case last week. A client of mine wants to sell the house. Buyers all lined up. And I said to the client, are you sure you want to do this? Because now the real work comes, not just finding the buyer, but getting everything moved out of the house. So I said to and I made sure that the client wanted to do that. And then I said, well, how much time do you think you need to get ready for this? Because this isn't, usually if you find a buyer 6 weeks later, the house is being sold. But I knew that in most situations where elders have these houses and have held them for many, many years, 6 weeks isn't going to do it. How much time do you usually see that you need to work in these situations to help a downsize of a move? And because again, I see some of these elders, like the one I'm dealing with last week, I want to say they've had this place since the early 70s.
Well, we recommend, we can do it quicker, and we could actually do it in 6 weeks, but it's not the way that we would recommend for either the senior or us, but particularly the senior and their family. We recommend at least 3 to 6 months.
Yep.
We want to give the senior time to be able to make thoughtful decisions about what's going to happen with their things, that they do it in a planned way rather than under a crisis. In 6 weeks to move out of your house for 35, 50 years, that's a crisis.
Right.
And it would be overwhelming to make all of those decisions. We could do it, but would we be happy in terms of the process for the senior? No. I mean, we'd want to give them more time to have the options and decide really what they wanted to happen to their possessions.
And I think you're also talking about where they're going to go. And that's a major factor. If someone is going from the large old family home to a 2 or 3 bedroom condo, okay, that's one set of decisions. Are they going to independent living where they're going to have their meals prepared and they're going to have a great number of safety supports, or to assisted living where they really are going to have a much, much smaller space, but they're going to have many fewer things they need to bring with them. The pots and pans of yesteryear shouldn't be brought. Now, occasionally some of our clients will insist that the pressure cooker has been with me on my stove, I need to bring it. Well, okay, so what we need, or they need, is time to have these discussions. It's about where are you going to go? Let's see if we can get a floor plan. What's going to fit? What do you want to take? What do you need to take? So again, you're right. It really, just selling the house is not going to make a thoughtful move. So.
Now, what have you experienced concerning like elders' expectations of like their kids taking all their stuff? I mean, I remember when my mother-in-law, you know, was selling her house. Actually, we sold it after she passed away. But even then, I mean, with 5 daughters in a house full of stuff, I mean, I said to my wife, you know, our house is filled as it is. You know, we don't have room for, you know, a lot of the stuff that, you know, maybe your mother or your father was expecting, you know, the kids to, you know, inherit. What has been your experience concerning those issues?
Actually, telling seniors about the value of their items when they're downsizing is one of the hardest things we have to do in the job. Because if the senior, if your mother-in-law was still living, she would be surprised at how little things are worth compared to what she thought they might be worth.
So you mean the mahogany bedroom sets aren't worth what she paid for them years ago?
No, not at all. And they may think the mahogany dining room set or the dining room set is really valuable, and it's hard for them to accept that. It's also equally hard for them to know that their children, their adult children, just like you're talking about your wife, they already have everything they need. Your houses are already filled as adult children. And the grandchildren don't want the things either because they have a different style. You know, they're new, modern, Pottery Barn, IKEA, whatever, but they don't want the big heavy mahogany furniture or what their grandparents had. And they don't even want the beautiful bone china because you can't put it in the dishwasher. So that's very hard working with seniors around there. So what we try to do is talk about finding good homes for it. Nobody wants to see their things land in a landfill. And there are places that we can donate these things that they'll have good use. And so when we're working with seniors and we have the time to work out these decisions with them, they can see that their things are going to go to good homes, which is very important.
We frequently say, we will help you find places, someone who needs this now more than you do. So here is the bedroom set, here's the dining room table, here is the kitchenware. Okay, look at all of those people who may have been burned out, who may be immigrant families, who really, for whatever reason, don't have things. And so we really talk about recycling their things. And people find it much easier to, once they've accepted the fact that their kids are not going to take it and their grandchildren can't, then it's where does it go? And if it can go to someone who really needs it, it's very helpful in making that happen.
I think, if I may, you've described your services, but what the viewers need to know is this is not just an idea, something you're experimenting with. This is something that's really sought after. That there's a market demand for your services.
That's right. This is actually an emerging industry, and it's about 8 years old.
Yes, yes.
There's a national association. There are senior move managers all over the country, and it's in response to the fact that we have an aging population. And you know, people really aren't, they're living well into their 70s, 80s, 90s plus. Their children are 20 or 30 years younger than that. They're not able to really help the way they had in the past when we were all younger, or they may not have children. And so it's a real need. And so we get a lot of referrals from the assisted living facilities who will say, we have someone who needs to come in and they have no one to help them. From attorneys who will say, I have this family that needs some help. So yes, it's actually, when Joy and I started this business, we thought it was a novel idea. Little did we know there was a national association, and it has been extremely rewarding to deal with word-of-mouth referrals, with referrals from other institutions, and discover, as you say, it's a real need. And there actually are many. We feel very proud of the way we work, but there are many senior move managers across the country, and responding to, again, I think, the aging population.
I have another question. I've lost both of my parents, as has Paul. Paul has more siblings. I have one sister. Paul, I think you have 7 brothers and sisters, I think.
9.
9. Yeah, I haven't met them all.
Lucky.
The point is how do you help an individual, grown-up children, in my case with my sister, Paul with his siblings, 9 siblings, you know, reconcile with, well, geez, that was sentimental to mom or sentimental to dad, and you've got a little bit of that angst going on with the adult children on what to do, how to handle it.
One of the things that we do is we developed a series of tools to help us work with families. So in a situation where there's some concern about who's getting what, what we do is we always inventory anyway when we're downsizing a house, we'll develop a checklist that includes the possessions in the living room, let's say the possessions in the den, the study, the bedrooms, and then there'll be a checklist where we ask the various family members, each one, to fill out what they want. And very frequently what happens is they all think they may be wanting the same thing, but they don't. But then we see how many items several children want. So then that can be negotiated and talked to about that particular item. But you see where it falls down. It's really stopped some of the potential tension and stress that the family is feeling about who's getting what.
Both Joy and I have been the adult children also. We've lost our parents and have gone through this process. And I think what we want our clients or families to know is that we're really there to work with them. We're there to help them make the best decisions with the least amount of stress. And actually, as an outside other, we have no, we don't have an oar in the water here. This is not our game. So, we're kind of neutral parties. And I think that's one of the things we hear most from the families is, thank goodness you were there because you took the friction out. You took the tension out. You could be objective. Frequently, Joy and I feel there's some just being a little cheerleader. We recognize and appreciate the idea of loss, of having to leave some of your things, but we're cheerleaders in this is kind of a new beginning. This is right-sizing. And I think that's very difficult to do parent and child. It's another role. And
I like the right-sizing. That'll help us even now.
Right. Downsizing to right-size your life. That's really what we
I like
we're
that.
all about.
Now, what's the typical size job that you do?
Our jobs range from very small jobs to very large jobs and everything in between. Natalie, you want to talk about a small job?
Right, this was kind of an interesting one. We got a call from someone who said, we're doing really well, getting everything, attic, basement, everything. But Mom is a gourmet cook, and Mom won't let anybody in the kitchen. She just can't get rid of anything. And can you just do the kitchen? And so I happened to be the one who went in here, and we had a wonderful time. It's being the outside other. We had the floor plan. This is how much you can take. Let's decide. Do you need that roaster? Have you been down under the sink lately to get the bread maker or up on the top shelf? Now, we could laugh about it because I was not the daughter.
Right.
And we ended up, after 2 days, totally downsizing that kitchen, and it was a wonderful kitchen. And she could appreciate where her things were going. How many glasses do you need? There are the two of you, and you're going to assisted living. Maybe we can take 4 so somebody can visit you. So I think there are those very small but targeted jobs that make life easier for the family. Again, we try to consider that we're working with the family. It's what do they need. So
I can see that taking the emotion out of the equation too.
That's right.
Because I know that you know, daughters, sons, they mean well. I mean, but they're almost chastising their parent by saying, "Oh, Mom, you don't need that. That's ridiculous." I mean, I think when you start criticizing, then you may have the elder kind of put their back up and, you know, I'm going to take that bread maker.
Yeah, and that's absolutely right. I mean, that really is the dynamic we want to avoid because you can't help it. And I know it with having done my own mother. And I could see the minute I would say, well, Mom, when would you ever use it? Well, you know, now.
Right.
And but if you're an outside other, it just doesn't have any of that family tension. So you're right on there.
Right, and we also use tools, tricks of the trade, so to speak, to help elders see how much space they're going to have. So, for example, in kitchens, we will measure how much space they're going to have in their new kitchen, and then we'll take blue painter's tape, and we will mark off in their kitchen with the painter's tape, the blue tape that doesn't leave marks, how much space they're going to have. We take everything out of the cupboards, and then they can really have anything they want, but that's all the space they're going to have.
Yep.
So they can see it visually and have a really better understanding of what will fit and what won't fit. We do the same with closets.
Oh, very nice.
Wow.
And closets, when you're dealing with a home of 35, 40, 50 years, there is clothing stowed in the attic, in the basement, in all these closets, and you're only going to have this much space. And it is remarkable how people can, once they visually see it and have had the discussion, can really work quite well with us. And again, the clothes are all taken to whatever kind of donation site is local, and they know that someone will really appreciate the clothing that they just can't take with them. How many coats and boots do you need?
So there's a need for your service. We've talked about that. There is a need, but when should somebody even begin to think about this downsizing? Before you even become involved.
Right.
Is there a when?
There is today.
Right, that's what we always say. Start now. Even if you're not thinking of moving.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I mean, because it's one thing, the move is very, very stressful. Finding a buyer, if you found a buyer, then okay, the clock is ticking. But what about, hey, do a little downsize before, hey, I'm going to sell the house in 2 years or a year from now. But why not get that process started earlier? I mean, it may be difficult if they haven't really picked out a place that they're going to go to kind of have measured out what they can take. But I would think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you have some services to kind of come in and just really get rid of the fluff or the extra stuff before you have to even figure out a floor plan and everything else.
Exactly. They can. The sooner the better. We can start working with them or they're getting rid of what you call the fluff, the extra things that we know they wouldn't be taking with them, that if we talk it over with them about how do you see yourself really using this, could somebody else make better use of it, which is one of our key things, you know, already involving the family. If they think their family wants it, it's nice for them to know then, rather than later, whether it's going to be taken.
Right.
So we would encourage attorneys specializing in elder law to encourage your clients to start as early as possible so they're not caught up in a situation of having to do it very quickly.
And I think one of the things that we talk about with families is the family can start with their parent and say, can you start weeding out those photographs or the paperwork or the clothing? And if they see it's not happening, because it's actually very overwhelming, and we've discovered that even though there is good intention to start weeding through this, so it still would make sense for us to come in just on a casual basis, an intermittent basis, to say, let's look at just your bedroom right now. That's the only room we're going to focus on, because if you focus on the whole house, frequently it's so overwhelming to a senior. We'll get them focused on one room. And here's what needs to be done. Can you do it? And then come back again. There are times when some of that is the precursor to really downsizing. It's getting them to start thinking in that kind of organized fashion. Let's do this, then let's move on to this, and we can just kind of coach it. So it's really a little coaching initially, because once you're going to be in process, things start moving quite
Very quickly.
Right.
quickly.
Well, I like that, the fact that you offer these type of almost piecemeal services.
We do.
So that, you know, people can maybe concentrate on a room at a time, or maybe just getting rid of the stuff that they know that they should have got rid of a long time ago, but just haven't gotten around to it.
We've actually worked with a client for a couple of years where they said, well, first, you know, can you do the basement? And the garage, and then the attic, and you could see us circling the house. And that worked for them. And it really was a wonderful way for them to get used to getting rid of things in an orderly fashion. It fit for them. And then they could move. Then the house could go on the market. So.
Another, once the elder gets to the point, or the senior, that they have to sell the house, like this case of, you know, the house is going to close in 6 weeks, one of the most difficult things for them to do is to let go of things that hold a lot of memory to them, and that they're cherished possessions. And so before we start the actual downsizing process with them, we talk to them. We really want to know what's important to them in their house. What are the possessions they cherish? It may not be worth any money, but it has some huge sentimental value to them. Or they might have collections and they're not going to be able to take the whole collection. And what we want to help seniors with, and their families, is preserving their memories without having to keep all the, quote, stuff in the house. And we do that by recommending making albums of things that are, you know, we could take a video of their house, or make a picture album of their house, of items in each room. Take pictures of collections, like if they had a special collection of, let's say, miniature cars or Hummels or toy soldiers or whatever it is. Take pictures of those, and then you can take 1 or 2 with you to your new, much smaller living space, but you still have that memory by having that album that you can look back to without keeping.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that idea, because that way you can look back at it. You can still have the memories,
Yes.
but you don't have the stuff.
Right, right, and that helps people if we talk to them about that right at the start. It also helps us in that conversation, because when they do move, we really want to, as much as possible, recreate the heart of their home in their new home. So that they may have a house with 8 rooms, but they probably are only using 2 or 3. They're probably in a den where they're watching TV, where there's a comfortable couch or a comfortable chair. And so we'd recommend, you know, you don't need to take your formal living room set. They can if they want, because the decision is theirs, but this is the kind of advice we give. You know, where is it that you sit? and where is it that you're comfortable, and what is it that you like to look at your house. So we like to make sure, and even in a much smaller space, we can capture the essence of someone's home by having that conversation. And so when they walk in, they really feel like it's their home.
Yeah, I like what I'm hearing. I'd like to hear a success story before we conclude. Give me a real success story.
Well, let's see. One of the success stories, I think, is has a couple of different goals, and that was that we had a couple that had huge house, and they were planning to go to independent living. And so they called us in, and that of course was because they'd had a medical incident, that they were going to have to do this. And actually after we got there, the medical incident was resolved and they didn't need to move immediately. But they said, okay, you're going to be a Christmas gift to our children. And therefore, we would like you to come in and downsize our house so that when we're ready, when we do have to go, it'll be turnkey.
Right.
We can go. So we went through every room and probably got rid of immediately a third of the possessions in the house, and it was fun. Both the husband and wife had a good time discussing what they wanted, who they wanted to have it. They talked to their children, who were adult children and had physical ailments and could not have done this for them.
Right.
And they really wanted it to be a gift to their children. They knew their children couldn't do it. So it was a win-win because, and actually subsequently, they haven't left the house, but they have Joy back occasionally to make sure things are still in the place they were put. But now, even things that are there, there's the list. The children took what they wanted and could take, but there's the list. When we need to move, this is who gets it, this is what happens to it. So they are totally relaxed about what their next step is going to be. And we really look at that as a kind of a nice success story.
The thing that families, when you talk about working with families, say most about us, as well as the seniors, is we couldn't have done it without you.
Oh, that's a nice
That's
way to
what- That's
conclude.
the most common thing they say to us.
It's nice. Well, I've truly enjoyed this session of your long-range plan. I've learned a lot. I want to thank you, Joy and Natalie, for you, for taking the time to come in.
Well, thank you.
To meet
Thank you
with
for
Paul
having
and I and to talk about your services. And do you have anything to say?
No, it's great to know that these type of services are out there because I see the need.
Yeah.
I see the need.
This
Thank you.
is wonderful.
Thank you.
And thank you to our viewers for tuning in one more time to Your Long Range Plan. And as always, Paul and I will always suggest or encourage you to look at the credits at the end of this particular program to find our contact information. So with that, we'll see you next time. Thank you.